Hi, I'm Deborah Vogler of Instant Insight, reporting from SEMI's ISS 2012 conference in Half Moon Bay, California. My guest is Dan Hutcheson of VLSI Research. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Well, my first question for you is this. There were a number of 450 millimeter manufacturing equipment announcements in 2011, and it certainly looks like the industry is very serious about making this transition. But how do you see efforts playing out over the next 2 years? And I especially wanted to point out that Jim Kuhnman yesterday, in his talk here at the conference, mentioned that ASML is actually going to be working on 450 millimeter for EUV.
Right. Well, in fact, if you talk about ASML at ITPC late last year, Eric Maurice said that he'd be able to develop production tools by 2016. Excuse me, beta tools by 2016, production tools by 2018. And if you're looking at a 2018 production ramp for 450, you really have to be starting pretty soon because they have to have the tools in place 2 years before. And then it really has to reach research about 2 years before that. So you start to get pretty close into where we are today. The biggest problem today is getting alignment of the industry because it's really not quite aligned yet into executing to 450.
All right. Well, now let's, sticking in a way with EUV as the topic, source technology, especially as it relates to tool productivity, is still a concern. And what backup plans do you see the industry adopting if this issue cannot be resolved? And again, I want to at least let the audience know that yesterday Jim Kuhnman also said that ASML does have a strategy, if you will, that by the end of 2012 they will be increasing the productivity.
Well, the backup plan for EUV not making it is the same that it's always been, and that's you add more patterning layers, and you just get more and more complex lithography. The other thing that most people don't remember is that Moore's Law is not always a 2-year clock. It's always been dependent on technology developments coming through systematically and hitting those deadlines. Back in the transition from 16K to 64K DRAMs, Moore's Law, actually, the clock was held in abeyance from about 1976 to 1982. It was like a 5 or 6 year lag because the technology wasn't there. We were moving from projection aligners to steppers. Lithography became this huge bottleneck that really crimped the industry's ability to move forward. And yet, the revenues for the industry really didn't slow. The industry continued to grow, that sort of thing. So, you know, at the end of the day, the demand's still there. If we don't meet this, even if multi-patterning runs out of steam, we'll still be selling semiconductors, and the industry will still be moving forward.
Fair enough. And what is your economic outlook for the industry over the next 2 years?
You want to rephrase it over the next year?
Okay, over the next year. All right. Well, we won't hold you to to 2013.
I always love to talk about 2 years out, and the reason why is nobody ever remembers what you said. You know, last year we said that it was going to be a very tough year. It turned out to be incredibly tough. The semiconductor industry came in with about 2% growth. That was largely because we had this huge boom year in 2009. And what's happening now is we expect electronics to be around 6% growth. Actually, 2011, the electronics was actually up 5%. So even though the semiconductor industry only grew about 2% and equipment had a very rough second half, the end demand was still growing. And as we go into next year, we expect electronics to continue to grow, and we think semiconductors will grow about 4%. The problem that you have is that for equipment, which we are forecasting a minus 20% growth, is that the growth declines so far in the second half that when you integrate the 2 years, next year, or I should say this year, 2012, will be a down year. And but if you figure out where the bottom is, the bottom's actually in the first and second quarter. So we're actually going to be plowing our way out of it at this point. That's one of the reasons why at ISS this year, speaking of which, I always love to come to ISS because you can really tell how the year is going to turn out because everyone's gotten back. They've checked with all their field offices. They know what needs to be shipped and whatnot. They're happy here this year. It's got this positive energy that tells you that we're digging our way out of the downturn that occurred in the second half.
Well, thank you very much for being my guest and for ending on a positive note here.
You're welcome.